Alright, let's do this. I have really terrible news for everyone. Unfortunately, YouTube has recommended me a MatPat video. So now we're going to react to it. And, like, this is something that I want to say. Like, I don't hate MatPat at all. I really don't. But his videos fucking suck. I mean, not the videos. The videos have like very high production. They're very like well done. This music is turning me off. Let me find better ambience. There. It's not that I hate him at all. Like, I really don't. Like, you know, like he knows how to make videos. I watch a lot of his videos. Like, they are very enjoyable to watch. But his theories usually fucking suck. And judging by what I see here, I can already tell that this one is gonna be a sucker as well. Because there's like this common misconception that medieval food sucks, and it doesn't. It was actually like very high standards. I don't know, like we think we're better than our past selves, and that's just not true. Let's see this thing.
Me lord, upon what do you wish to dine this evening? Me lord, upon what do you wish to dine this evening?
I desire something simple tonight. A hamburger.
What?
You know, a burger. Ground up beef wadded into a patty and then grilled.
But you said ham.
But it's actually beef. Try to stay with me here, kid. And on the side, I'd like some fried potatoes.
Potato?
Yes, potato! Boil 'em, mash 'em, stick 'em in a stew. Only in this case, I want 'em stuck into a big vat of hot oil. What is so hard about this?
We're not magicians, me lord. We can't make fictional foods.
They're not fictional! They're just to cross an ocean on a landmass that you don't even know exists yet. It is simple! God, no one is good at their jobs. Greetings upon the internet. Welcome to Ye Oldie Food Theory, the show that strives for the authentic medieval YouTube experience. Remembereth to send your small scribe to ring the towny bell.
By the way, I just want to like say like this video's from 1 year ago. It's not new, but YouTube recommended me for some fucking reason. I don't know why.
Send a missive to the Lord of Comments, leaving a 5-star review. Yeah.
I miss the star system rating, dude. Like I get it. I know that the like and dislike is more like straight to the point, is more accurate, it's better. But it was so fun, like it was cool. It was cool. I don't know why. I think it's nostalgia. I think it's just nostalgia.
Yeah, just in case you didn't know, YouTube used to have a 5-star rating system instead of likes and dislikes. The more you know. Okay, so despite our efforts to be totally historically accurate, it's possible that some things occasionally slip through the cracks. Like how YouTube wasn't invented until 2005. Maybe a YouTube video isn't the best place for creating a
YouTube only blew up in Brazil in 2006.
feeling of ambiance,
yeah,
like being in medieval times. But you know what is the best place for creating the
And 2006 YouTube was shit. It was really bad, actually.
ambiance and being in medieval time?
Like, I only started using YouTube on 2007, because 2006 was, like, fucking unbearable.
Medieval Times, the US-based theme restaurant that transports diners back in time to experience all the food, all the sights, and all the drama of feasting while at a medieval tournament of champions. Authenticity is a key selling feature for this chain. Employees are instructed to
like, this is like one of the 2 fests that I kind of want to go at, like 3 actually. Another one is from here in Brazil. It's called Festa dos Confederados. It's actually near São Paulo, and it's very near to me actually. It's in my state, and I had no idea that this existed, and it seems fun. It seems a lot of fun. Like, people just gather around dressed as cowboys and they eat barbecue. and dance to country music. It sounds like fun. Like, I want to go here. This seems like a good time. And there's like some historical importance for this fest, is because like a lot of the Confederates, after they lost the war, they moved on to Brazil, to this specific city, and they own like a graveyard, and this fest helps, like this fest helps to pay for the graveyard. Oh yeah, and it's in celebration of being well received by Brazil. So it's super awesome. It's super awesome party. Music, dance, and gastronomy. There's some bikers. I guess it's part of like Confederate. Confederate stuff. Seems, burgers, chili dogs, that kind of stuff. Very cool stuff. Another fest that I want to go at is I'm not gonna tell you what foda means, but it's this.
Nos dias 29, 30 e 31 de março, o Alto Minho volta a estar em festa. Vem aí a terceira edição
This is in Portugal, by the way.
da Feira da Foda, em Pias, Monção.
Vamos à foda.
Este ano temos várias surpresas. Venha descobri-las. O Cordeiro à Moda de Monção, mais conhecido por Foda, já conquistou os paladares do mundo. A iguaria reúne à mesa.
So, okay, I'm gonna tell you what it is. Foda means like effing great, basically.
A história, a gastronomia e a tradição.
Like, apparently they like this dish so much that they call it like effing awesome.
Esta foda deu origem ao prato, à confraria, à feira
So,
e ao milho.
but it's cool. It's cool. Like it's the same idea. Dance, food, and music. Some farm stuff, cheese tasting. There's like Iberic ham, which is like the most expensive ham in the world. Super fun. And I mean, I never tasted like Iberic ham because it's so expensive.
A primeira surpresa é a estreia do presunto de cordeiro, uma inovação que vai
Oh, this is like this is sheep ham. I didn't even know that we made
Vamos fazer a festa.
sheep ham. Oh, that's like ham of sheep. I had no idea. So this is like some fun fest that I kind of want to like go to.
Almost never break character for any reason. Diners are outright served without silverware to replicate that medieval dining experience. You know what that means, friends? This restaurant was basically one big old flashing red sign saying, "Matt Pat, fight me." So, is medieval
Yeah, it seems
times
fun.
actually the authentic medieval dining
a lot of fun.
experience? Saddle up, theorists! Today's episode is gonna be a bloodbath. To begin, let's determine where and when the story of medieval times is meant to take place. The medieval ages, also known as the Middle Ages, are a period of history lasting
I
roughly
wonder if there's like a dress code, like if you have to go like there dressed as a medieval person, or if you can just go there like normally, because that would be annoying to me.
1,000 years, starting with the fall of Rome and lasting until the Italian Renaissance.
Like I feel like if you had to have like a dress code, I would just buy like I would pretty much just go in dressed as Asmongold. I would just buy like a cheap ass like t-shirt and I don't know, like tear it in parts and say, "Hey, I'm a peasant. Let me in."
So really,
I'm
claiming
dressed as
something as
peasant, you know what I'm
medieval
saying?
is about as non-specific as you get. 1,000 years is a long time in history. Thankfully, though, we can actually narrow it down to a specific century and region. You see, while medieval times seems to be one of the most American-themed restaurants to ever America, its origins actually trace back to Spain. Back in 1983, Medieval Times' founder, Jose Montaner, converted his family-owned restaurant into a type of dinner theater where audiences could feast.
I kind of wish there was something like this in Brazil, because like we don't have like any place where you can sit down and eat medieval food.
While watching his family's history, which traced back to the
Like it would be interesting to have like a restaurant that serves like. Actually, there is, I think. Let's see. Am I crazy? Let me confirm this real quick. Shut up. What is this? Oh, it's a. Oh yeah, I was googling this. Let's see. Oh, there is. I'm stupid. Let's see if there's like in my state. There might be. Actually. This is in São Paulo. Oh, nice. Hey, dude. I think I'm going there. Actually. I think I'm going to this place.
Hello, milords, tudo bem com vocês?
Hello, miladies.
Hoje nós vamos mostrar para vocês um lugar que faz a gente viajar no tempo para os tempos medievais.
They
Hoje
always
a gente
use this
tá
music
aqui
because it's
na
copyright
taverna
free.
medieval.
I don't know what it's called, but it's very nice. Yeah, this sounds like it seems like a fun experience.
Antes de entrar na casa e mostrar para
Seems
vocês
expensive,
o
too.
cardápio, que é maravilhoso, totalmente
Like, that's a lot of
diferente, a
setup.
gente vai mostrar para vocês um pouco do restaurante. Seguindo aqui, a gente vai descer pro calabouço e a gente vai mostrar mais tarde tudo que tem lá, porque é demais o calabouço. Mas que nem
Blá, blá, blá.
esse fantasiar, top.
Oh, you can buy some like elf ears, some
E olha
D&D
só que
stuff.
top isso aqui.
Wait, what is that?
Olha, tem uma
What's
pedra.
on that table? Is
E
that
olha
like a? Is that like a this looks like one of those like, you know, a casino like spinners or whatever it's called.
só que top isso aqui.
I wonder if there's like
Olha, tem
some
uma
kind of
pedra
game
aqui com uma espada
that you do
cravada
when
que
you
a gente
sit
pode tentar
around.
tirar, inclusive, hein? Não dá, não dá, deixa quieto. Vem cá. Olha só que lugar incrível a temática.
Dude, this is so weird. Like I guess he recorded it and then he's voiceovering, but the voiceover is not very good at all.
Olha aqui. É aqui onde eles preparam as poções.
Dude, imagine how awkward it must be. Like you're in the middle of a restaurant and there's a guy like it must be so fucking awkward, dude.
E os
It must be
drinks.
so weird.
Tudo que a gente bebe sai daqui, muito top. Olha, filma ali aquelas espadas na parede.
It must be so fucking awkward, dude. I would be eyeing this guy like that would be me if I was there.
Muito show, muito. Dá um oi aí, pessoal. Muito show, hein? A gente trouxe uma galera que
Why did he like? Why are they not voiceover?
são os nossos
And why did he talk in voiceover and then like he switched to the actual? What are you doing, my dude? I'm done with this video. Fuck you.
11th century. And indeed, it's there in 11th century Spain that the original medieval times stories were set.
There was a time, long
España.
ago, when a wise king sat upon a mighty throne. For many years,
it rhymed.
his realm grew and prospered, and the people lived under skies of peace and plenty. Yet there came a day when the rumor of war reached the ear of the king.
Hey,
He
it's
gathered
the
his
Draco
day
Malfoy father. What is his name? Lucius Malfoy.
when
Yeah.
the rumor of war reached the ear
Actually, it also looks like Arthas. I guess they kind of look alike, yeah?
of the king. He gathered his finest knights about him. As the day neared its end, the king, his brother the prince, and 6 of his bravest knights repulsed the
This looks like a trailer for an ARPG.
final charge of the enemy. The day was won, but with the death of the prince, the kingdom was without a champion.
That said, medieval times does update its story every few years, so it's possible that they might have migrated forward in time a bit. As such, I'm gonna give them a bunch of wiggle room. Let's say
Wait, so they changed the RP of the restaurant? That's so weird.
between
that's
the
so
years
strange.
950 and 1250. This means even if we're
So like, I mean, the restaurant has like a ongoing RP. This is so weird.
assuming the latest possible date here, medieval times still should be happening about 200 years before Columbus sailed the ocean blue, starting the massive cultural and economic upheaval that would eventually be known as the Columbian Exchange. And I call that event out specifically for good reason. You see, it's hard to overstate just
the
how much of a
beginning of the
cultural
Renaissance.
influence the Columbian
Which by default means that it's the end of the medieval times.
exchange had on the world at large. History classes usually only focus on the flow of colonists from Europe to the Americas, but the newly opened trade passages meant that plants, animals, diseases, and
Brazil, we
fungi
call
were finding
this
new
the-
homes in
the
far-flung
era of
corners of the
sailing.
planet as boats and people
'Cause it makes more
constantly
sense, I
sailed
guess.
back and forth across the Atlantic. This meant things like the introduction of brand new ingredients to European
It also
chefs,
makes more
things like
sense
sugar.
than Renaissance. Renaissance makes no fucking sense. What is being reborn? Nothing's being reborn. What the fuck is this?
chocolate, vanilla, all of that came into play in a brand new way and forever changed the way that recipes were designed. But even existing
Like the only historical renaissance happened 1,500 years ago by that time. What are you talking about?
ingredients would transform as a result of all this. Sure, Europe
so
had things like
bad. I
strawberries
don't
before the
understand.
Columbian Exchange, but they were very small. But then these global explorers suddenly
like some of these like airtimes are so like poorly. It's so weird. Like the Dark Ages. Why is it the Dark Ages? Like it wasn't that much of a bad time. Not really. I mean, pretty much the only thing that happened that was like bad was the fall of Rome and the beginning of Muslim expansion. Because Muslims were invading pretty much everywhere. Other than that, it was pretty chill, and a lot of empires prospered in the Dark Ages.
discover massive strawberries just growing in modern-day Chile and Peru. The conquistadors bring them back to Europe and start hybridizing them. A ham grill.
Did I really just do that?
Bring them back to Europe and start hybridizing them with the home breeds. Stack on another 600 or so years of innovation, scientific.
One thing that he's not mentioning here is that like the first strawberries, like when they were found, they were green. They were yucky. Let's see if I can find something about it. Because like fruits went through a process of improvement.
This is
a really good channel, by the way. Really good shirt. Fire of Learning. I really like this guy. He's really good. Let's see if I can find like ancient strawberry. Apparently not. Well, it's one of those things that you find on a YouTube video that is recommended to you and never find it again.
Discovery and selective breeding, and suddenly you have yourself a fruit that would almost be unrecognizable to a medieval European. So just right off the bat, living in the post-Columbian Exchange world is gonna make our food inauthentic tasting. The food that exists today, it's just gonna taste better 9 times out of 10 because our ingredients have the benefit of selective breeding and engineering. Also falling into the tastes inauthentic category are the drinks. I promise you, I scoured the internet searching for some kind of scholarly article about 11th century Spaniards adding lemon and lime juice to spring water, thereby creating a proto-Sprite, as it were. But alas, nobody in medieval Europe was drinking anything close to what we'd call a soda. Instead, many of the nobility would have been drinking wine and ale. So let's just start off the wine, shall we?
Yeah, ale was like pretty much what everyone was drinking. Priests drink that a lot, but they drink like they drink a version of ale that had like less potency, less alcohol. I don't know if that was like for everyone. I know that priests were drinking like a lot of light alcoholic beverage.
Modern wine is a triumph of vinting and science that would be utterly baffling to even the most masterful winemaker back in the Middle Ages. Yeast, the magic little fungi that digivolves boring old grape juice into palatable alcoholic wine, wasn't discovered as an individual organism until 1680. Before then, people had no idea what mechanism actually created the alcoholic flavor and effect. As a result, they would just take rotten grape juice and throw
I don't know about that. They have no idea. I'm sorry, no.
random stuff into it until it tasted.
Like, I'm very skeptical of this, like, people had no idea thing. Because it could be true, but usually it's not. Like, usually this is how shit historians, like, trick you. They go like, oh, people back then, they had no idea about fucking anything. Old people were so stupid. But yeah, like, did you know that Columbus wasn't the guy who discovered that the Earth was round? The guy who discovered that the Earth was round, if I'm not mistaken, was Copernicus. If I'm not mistaken. Let me ask ChatGPT real quick. Columbus was the guy that proved, he proved that the Earth was round. But they already knew it. You know what I'm saying? Who was it that actually... Let's see if ChatGPT knows. Pythagoras. Pythagoras was one of the earliest to propose the idea of a spherical Earth. He based his idea on philosophical reasoning rather than observational evidence. Okay, so it wasn't much of a scientific proving. It was more of a arguing. Let's see Aristotle. He provided empirical evidence for a spherical Earth by observing that the Earth's shadow on the moon during a lunar eclipse is round and that travels moving south. See different constellations. How blessed are we that Aristotle lived to see a lunar eclipse? Eratosthenes, a Greek mathematician who not only believed the Earth was round, but also made the first known measurement of the Earth's circumstances with remarkable accuracy. So, before Christ walked on the land, we already knew that the Earth was round. This conception that, it was all this, like, this one guy, Columbus or whatever his name is, 1,500 years, right? He was the guy who found that out. Like, no, that's not true at all. It's just a bunch of fucking bullshit. Everyone already fucking knew this shit, dude.
Okay. Winemaking was just a complete...
He just proved it as a fact that it was round.
Gamble here. They were trying anything from other fruit juices to herbs and spices to even powdered marble, trying to make it taste palatable. It was also thicker than the wine of today.
And by the way, the fucking like proving was fucking meaningless because to this day there's still idiots who believe in a flat Earth. So,
you know, enjoy drinking your fermented grape sludge fortified with powdered rock. Bottoms up. Similarly, the ale that you could find in medieval taverns would be nothing like modern beer. Almost all modern beers use fresh cloned yeast as their base, which gives them a clean, light finish. Before the discovery of yeast, though, brewers had to rely on dregs from previous batches to serve as a yeast starter for their next brew, a lot like how a mother dough is used to bake sourdough. That means that beer in the medieval era would have had a flat, sour taste. In fact, this method is still used today, but it's used to create a very specific variety of beer known as exactly that, a sour. Back to the point though, if you really do want the most authentic medieval beverage experience, just order yourself a sour beer and then let it sit for about an hour or so before you drink it. Beyond that, hops, a key ingredient. If you really do want the most authentic medieval beverage experience, just order yourself a sour beer and then let it sit for about an hour or so before you drink it. Beyond that, hops, a key ingredient in most modern beers, didn't become
1 hour is rough, but I can do that.
A popular additive until the 12th century, so a bit too late for our purposes today. Hops adds a sharp, bitter taste to the beer, but more importantly, it acts as a preservative, allowing modern beers to have a shelf life of months, whereas medieval beer would have gone bad rather quickly. But even if you actively brewed using old yeast and used no hops, you're still likely getting a much cleaner, lighter tasting beer today, because nowadays we have stainless steel brewing kettles, we have filters, thermometers, clean-aged barrels. Compare all of that to the old wooden kegs and iron pots of ye olde times, and you can see that nowadays it's just a completely different food world. So the beer and wine might have had themselves a radically different taste from the Middle Ages, but at least they would have been there on the table. The food, on the other hand, well, it's just impossible. I couldn't find a single meal on the medieval times menu that was even possible to get in medieval Spain. We'll start off with the very first course for all attendees, tomato bisque. Tomatoes are delicious and are considered to be a staple of modern European foods, especially Italian food. But before the Columbian Exchange, tomatoes weren't available in Europe at all. Tomatoes are indigenous to South America, and as a result, they weren't grown in Britain until the 1590s. Some researchers actually credit the Spanish conquistador Hernan Cortez with bringing the seeds to Europe in 1519. And even then, people were still afraid of them. When Europeans first saw tomato leaves, they recognized them as being related to nightshade, a poisonous plant. That then made Europeans skeptical of eating tomatoes for a long time, meaning that even after the Columbian Exchange, it still took
Humanity never changes. Like, oh yeah, hey, like there's this like super safe to eat fucking shit. You can just plant it, and they're like, nah, I don't trust it. I think you are giving me poison. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you, dude? Why would you think that? Fucking shit. Also, a very interesting map that he found there. It's clearly not complete. It must be really exciting to live in a world where the world map is not completely filled.
Took an additional...
Because then you can like... It's like you kind of want to go adventure, but you don't know if you come out alive.
200 years for tomatoes to actually catch on as a food. That makes the bowl of tomato bisque that starts your medieval times meal about as historically accurate as giving a knight a musket. The next course is probably the most historically accurate, the salad. Everyone from the lowliest peasants to the richest noble would certainly have eaten their fair share of salads back in the Middle Ages, because meat was just expensive and difficult to produce. As a result, meat was reserved mostly for special occasions unless you were very well off. And even then, the powerful Catholic Church banned eating meat or even animal products on Fridays, Saturdays, and Wednesdays. That's right, in the Middle Ages, even the most powerful...
And I don't know how it's called in English, but the quaresma. I don't know what it's called in English. It's forgot.
Full of noble was vegan 3 times a week. So a salad isn't out of place here at all. Might as well give medieval times a point for this one.
Vegan though, because they were still eating cheese and they were still eating like fish and chicken. They ate a lot of chicken. Yeah, eggs. That's not vegan, bro. That's That's not even vegetarian, actually. No. That's incorrect.
Because it is honestly the only point they're getting this episode. Moving on to the main course, we've got ourselves a few options. A half chicken, some barbecue pork ribs, kielbasa sausage, and a vegetarian hummus plate. So let's just go down the line, shall we? The half roasted chicken is probably the most realistic option of the bunch. Chickens first arrived in Europe via trade around 800 BC, so it's perfectly reasonable to think that Europeans were cooking and eating chickens in the 11th century. And because they were relatively easy to raise and slaughter, they presented a viable food option. That said, chickens weren't as common as beef or pork because they required more care and attention than your typical pig or cow. As a result, chickens were often reserved for special occasions like feasts or holidays. Pigs, also viable on the tasting menu. They were domesticated thousands of years ago, so it's not unreasonable to think that our medieval feast would have had some pork ribs. Sure, their barbecue sauce wouldn't have been loaded with sugar and tomato paste like modern barbecue sauces, but they would season their meats with spices and wine, so pretty darn close. Considering how loose the definition of barbecue sauce can get sometimes, I'm gonna count it.
They would compress the herbs and make it a sauce out of that. I showed this like on a previous video.
Choice of meat though, that right there is the clear deal breaker. The kielbasa sausage was an invention of 14th century Poland, putting it 2 to 3 centuries ahead of where we're at in history. That said though, sausage itself is ancient, and some form of a sausage dish would have been popular in 11th century Spain. There was a popular Roman pork sausage named lucanica that might have held the
sausage is like a method of preservation, actually. They used this because the meat would last longer in the kitchen, and there was like no refrigeration, so...
top spot in Spain around this time, so not quite kielbasa, but still something close. No, in this case, the vegetarian option is the clear loser of the bunch. The hummus plate, that just ain't happening. On the one hand, dishes involving chickpeas, lentils, lemon juice, and garlic go back for thousands of years. On the other hand, the first recipe known for anything resembling hummus comes from the 13th century, and even then, it is barely what we'd call hummus today. At the end of the process, the 13th century hummus was rolled thin and then left to dry all night. Doesn't exactly sound like the kind of soft dip that we'd be expecting to get served as part of our kingly feast. But of them all, it's not actually the main part of the main course that makes all of these impossible, rather it's the side dish, the roasted potatoes. Now, when you think of potatoes, you probably think of the Irish, right? And the great potato famine that depopulated the country so badly that it still hasn't been able to recover.
Actually, no. When I think of potato, I think of gnocchi, and I think of German raclette, I think it's called. Like,
to a population larger than...
actually, Germans have a lot of dishes with potato. A lot of dishes with potato.
Its 1840 peak. But believe it or not, potatoes didn't originate in Ireland, nor did they originate in Russia where they make vodka of this stuff. Instead, the potato has its origins in the Andes Mountains of South America. Yeah, I was shocked by that fact too. Believe it or not, potatoes didn't make it over to Europe until the late 16th...
No, it wasn't Peru, it was... I forgot.
century.
Mexico?
It seems crazy to say, but the stereotype of a poor European potato farmer, that's a new stereotype. As recently as 400 years ago, potatoes were still a complete mystery to Europeans. You know what else was a mystery to them? Corn, another staple food item that was introduced to Europe as part of the Columbian Exchange. Jeez, when you look at the food roster here, it seems like all the most delicious stuff was over in the Americas. It's kind of like the worst kind of video game. All the best bits were locked behind this massive paywall. Sure, potatoes are free to grab out of the dirt.
I think the most, like, the best tasting vegetables was in South America, but they still had like a lot of cool stuff that, and I mean, they had like they had the cattle, they had the chickens, and they had like the fucking everything else. They had like delicious fruits, like apple. I think watermelons. They had bananas and coconut. No, coconut was, I think, was from Africa and South America. So no. Huh. I mean, they had the yeast. They had like the flour, which is extremely important. Super fucking important to make bread and to make pasta.
You can grow as much corn as you want.
And
You're just gonna
pie.
need to pay for a fleet of ships capable
Pie
of
was
crossing the
important,
ocean before you can get to any of this stuff. So basically, everything they give you.
Pie was something that you would like travelers would buy on pie shops, and pies were also a preservation method. Like they were very thick. Like the pastry of the pie wasn't meant to be like so much as to be like savored, but it was meant to be like the plate of the stuffing and to preserve the stuffing. So they would buy one and then they would travel and then they would eat as they travel, basically.
At medieval times is not the accurate Middle Ages dining experience that they advertise it being. But you know what's even more ironic? Even the stuff they don't give you is inauthentic. At medieval times, one of the main selling features is this lack of silverware. Sure, you can ask for some if you need it, but the venue sells this idea that you can just eat with your hands like they did back in the olden days. Except, that's just not true. Sure, forks were fairly rare in Europe before the 14th century, but knives and spoons? Those things were everywhere. Most people would regularly use a knife with their meal for cutting, and a wooden spoon for eating things like soup. Sure, they would use their hands more often than a modern diner, but it wasn't like medieval
peasants. Why don't they
peasants
have like forks if people used to eat forks?
had never seen cutlery before. But beyond that, medieval times pretends that all its audience members are nobles and are therefore getting the best treatment. Well, if that's the case, it would have been expected in the Middle Ages for you to bring your own cutlery to a dinner engagement in a box called a cadena. This would then give you a chance to show off the fancy knife and spoon that you had specially made up for you. If you were wealthy enough, these items may have been made of silver or even gold, while poor merchants trying to look richer than...
No. Okay, here he is actually wrong. Silver back then was more valuable than gold. So if you had like silverware, you were basically like really showing off. Like people would be more impressed by your silverware than by your golden ware. And this is like true to this day. Like even to this day, like you find a lot more like silverware, like this silver like ware, you know, this shit I forgot. Than golden. And I think I'm pretty sure this character is from D&D, but go on.
And they would get themselves a lead fork wrapped in gold leaf. So on the one hand, it's not very authentic to have no silverware on the table in medieval times. On the other hand, it is
and
trying to look richer than they would get themselves a lead fork wrapped in gold leaf.
And I have the suspicion that this is completely bullshit. It doesn't...
So on the one hand, it's not very authentic to have no silverware on the table in medieval times. On the other hand, it is authentic not to offer that silverware in general. That said, something tells me that the heavily armed security of medieval times might not appreciate me bringing a box with my own personal knife into a public space. Some people just don't appreciate historical accuracy. So, medieval times, the drinks are radically different, the recipes include items...
I don't think the staff would be bothered by you doing this. I mean, if you come to a restaurant and you show like a wooden box and you say like, hey, I'm just bringing my own spoon, I don't think they would kick you out for that. I really don't think so.
That wouldn't have even been known to people in the continent, and even their famous silverware policy is historically dubious. But honestly, if it means that I'm not having to drink a mouthful of powdered marble, I'm okay with that.
This is medieval time. great place to party.
And disco after the show.
Disco? They were encouraging you to disco after your jousting tournaments? When that commercial air? 1990? Oh boy, medieval times just missed all the time periods.
Well, who would have thought disco was invented in the 800s? What a bunch of lucky bastards.
But hey, all this talk about stale medieval mead has really gotten me thirsting for the sponsor of today's video, Air Up. Air Up catapults your water consumption into the 21st century with their state-of-the-art flavor pods. They sit on top of your bottle and trick your brain into thinking you're drinking flavored water, when in reality, it's all just plain no-calorie, no-sugar water. The scent is actually tricking our medieval brains into thinking that we're drinking a flavored beverage, when in fact, it's just a combination of water plus scent. Air Up has been a lifesaver for me as someone who drinks way more than their fair share of sugary, unhealthy sodas. After years of wanting to finally move to something more healthy, but being bored of regular water, Air Up swooped in to save the day. From their sleek-looking bottles to the variety of different flavor pods to pick from, they really brought me from a casual water imbiber to an advanced sipper. I just can't get enough of this thing. I take it and my wild berry flavor pod nearly everywhere I go. And if I eventually feel the need to get some regular water to remind myself of what the plebeians are tasting, just pop that flavor pod down on the bottle, mute the scent, and bam, I'm drinking regular unscented water again. This stuff is just truly brilliant. I could not recommend Air Up enough. And since variety is the spice of life, Air Up offers their favorite 5-pack, which comes stocked with 5 of the best flavors they have: orange vanilla swirl, raspberry.
If this is all just baloney, and he's saying that he's using that, and it's like a lifesaver for him, then isn't he just lying? Isn't he just like straight up lying?
Lemonade, watermelon peach, the aforementioned wild berry. You just can't go wrong. You will be guaranteed to find multiple flavors that you love. So if this is wet your whistle and you want to step into the 21st century of water drinkers, visit the link down in the description below to purchase your own bottle and then use the...
I legitimately don't know. Like, I have no fucking idea. I'm just asking the question. Like, I really don't know. I'm not trying to accuse him or anything. Food theory, the lemonade could kill you. I mean, anything in Panera could kill you because they don't clean anything. It's all fucking dirty, dude. But am I gonna stop going to Panera? No, because they're delicious. Like, I don't know, man. It's good food. It's good food for a good price. What do you want me to do?
This video is brought to you by Galaxy Lamps. Hello number ones, welcome back to my channel. This is the Metatron speaking, and today we are responding to a video from the channel The Food Theorist, which is of course one of the channels run by MattBat, so one of his popular channels. The video in question is titled Food Theory You Would Hate the 700-year-old meal, Medieval Times, and on the thumbnail we have the words Medieval Food Sucks. Now of course this could be just...
Now I think that the title, like the thumbnail, was basically just clickbait, because he didn't say that medieval food sucks. He just said that it was different. So I think he was just like clickbaiting, honestly.
Clickbait, maybe.
Yeah. Pre-watched, right?
He doesn't actually mean it, and on the video he will explain, but considering the fact that in the past, almost every time that MattBat has addressed something medieval, it was a problem that needed to be debunked, we're gonna have a look at this video together.
Oh, it's that guy. I forgot his name. Fuck, what is his name? Historia's Deadliest Warrior. Wait, what? Huh.
So let's watch it together. Maybe we'll debunk it. Maybe he gives good information. Let's see.
Greetings upon the internet.
So now I'm going to get to the point where we have to react to the react, because we can't trust MattBat. We just can't. Like, we've seen his research. It's fucking awful. We gotta look further.
Welcome to Ye Olde Food Theory, the show that strives for the authentic medieval YouTube experience. In case you didn't know,
already
YouTube has a
watched
5-star rating system,
so
so likes and dislikes.
Really, I had no idea.
So you know what is the best place for creating the ambiance of being in medieval times? Medieval Times, the US-based theme restaurant that transports diners back in time to experience all the food, all the sights, and all the drama of feasting while at a medieval...
I love that at the bottom right corner we've got a helmet that is actually not medieval, but it's more of a Renaissance 16th century. Love that.
Experience all the food, all the sights, and all the drama of feasting while at a medieval...
I love that at the bottom right corner we've got a helmet that is actually...
I honestly think that's a little bit of nitpicking, because, I mean... Can we really blame him for not knowing that a medieval helmet was made in the Renaissance era? I mean, can we really blame him? I feel like that's a bit of a nitpick. Common
not
mistake.
medieval, but it's more of a Renaissance 16th century helmet. But it is what it is.
Meta champions. Authenticity is a key selling feature for this chain.
This is a debunking video by MadPat, the way I understand it. So he's going to debunk this medieval restaurant. It's interesting how, if their selling point is medieval authenticity, already a very quick glance at the sort of costumes that they're wearing kind of debunks that already. So it's like, what the heck are they doing? And there isn't anything accurate about it. So I understand why he's making this video. So let's see how well he debunks them.
Employees are instructed to almost never break character for any reason. Diners are outright served without silverware to replicate that medieval dining experience. So, is medieval times actually the authentic medieval dining experience?
Probably not. Also, I've got something to say about removing cutlery in the medieval period, but perhaps MadPat is going to address that, so I'll give him space first.
To begin, let's determine where and when the story of medieval times is meant to take place. The medieval ages, also known as the Middle Ages, are a period of history lasting roughly 1,000 years, starting with the fall of Rome and lasting until the Italian Renaissance.
Yeah, I like that he said roughly, because it's true that it sort of depends on what scholarly approach you take. Some people say they lasted 1,000 years, some people say they lasted 500 years. It really depends how you count and what sort of nomenclature you choose. Personally, I tend to prefer to call it a 1,000 years period, so yes, I agree with that, but I appreciate that he said roughly.
Claiming something is medieval is about as non-specific as you get.
no,
1,000 years
was
is
a
a
very
long
bad
time
video.
in history. Back in 1983, Medieval Times' founder Jose Montanaro converted his family-owned restaurant into a type of dinner theater where audiences could feast while watching his family's history, which traced back to the 11th century.
Way,
Very
way,
interesting,
way
11th
worse.
century, but
Like the one videos, dude. Like, you guys know I'm a huge Mega Man fan. His videos on, like, his Mega Man theories are just so baffling. It's like, did you ever play a Mega Man game, my dude? It's just so much, bro. It's just so fucking much. Cause like, I mean, the lore of like the classic Mega Man is just so simple, honestly. Like, it's pretty much just like, you got a robot and he has a strong sense of justice, and there's Dr. Wily, and he thinks that robots are just tools, or they're just machines, and he's right. And Dr. Light is wrong. And Dr. Light is a stubborn little baby. He thinks that, he thinks that robots are like humans, and he wants to have like his robotic waifu from Japan, and treat it as if it was like a human being. And that's it. That's the lore. And then MadPat just made like a huge spectrum of like, oh no, you know what it is? This is actually like a apocalypse or whatever. The humanity is doomed or whatever the fuck. It's just so bizarre that he made videos. It's just so bad.
Really in the high medieval period. Also, the original idea sounds quite fun. I'd love to visit a restaurant like that.
And indeed, it's there in 11th century Spain that the original medieval times stories were set. It's possible that they might have migrated forward in time a bit. As such, I'm gonna give them a bunch of wiggle room. Let's say between the years 950 and 1250. This means even if we're assuming the latest possible date here, medieval times still should be happening about 200 years before Columbus sailed the ocean blue. It's hard to overstate just how much of a cultural influence the Columbian exchange had on the world at large, as boats and people constantly sailed back and forth across the Atlantic. This meant things like the introduction of brand new ingredients to European chefs, things like sugar, chocolate, vanilla. All of that came into play in a brand new way and forever changed the way that recipes were designed.
Okay, here's the thing. It's true that quite a lot of like new plants and new vegetables and fruits were imported from the New World to the Old World, and absolutely that did influence the way Europeans cooked and created recipes. I mean, even staple foods such as Italian food with a lot of tomatoes all over the place. Tomatoes obviously come from America, which means that for the majority of the medieval period, people didn't have access to tomatoes. But sugar, as he says, is not one of these new ingredients. Sugar was already present, of course, not in abundance, but it was not.
I mean, so this is weird. Okay, so what happened is that, because if I'm not mistaken, sugar came from Africa. I think that's what it is, right? Sugar cane came from Africa, if I'm not mistaken. And the tricky thing about sugar, like planting sugar, is that you need like hot weather to plant it. So they couldn't plant it on Europe, so they had to buy it from Africa, and it was very expensive because they had to travel to Africa and ask like for the African chiefs and stuff like that, and kings and whatever, to buy that shit. So when they brought sugarcane to Brazil and they started planting and it worked, we actually managed to plant a lot of sugar, and we got fucking wealthy. We got rich out of all of that sugar. It was very beneficial for us. that's when like sugar actually became kind of a staple in European cuisine, because it became cheaper because it's more accessible now. As a matter of fact, this is so important for Brazil that it influences our gastronomy, our culinary to this day. Like to this day, like not only like Brazil but also Portugal and Spain. Like to this day, Brazil, Spain, and Portugal, but Portugal not so much, uses a lot of sugar in their sweets, in their candy. Like a lot of sugar, like way more than you should have. If you think that American candies are way too sugary, you should avoid Brazilian candies, because it's just a bomb, a sugar bomb in your mouth, dude. It's insane. I actually don't like it. It's not very pleasant because you only feel the sugar.
A new ingredient
like when I make like Brazilian candies, like when I'm cooking, I actually lower the sugar, or sometimes I don't even put sugar at all because I'm just tired of
making it sound to be for European people and chefs. It wouldn't have been available to the commoners, but it was absolutely known. It is about.
So yeah, what I was trying to say with this is that like basically I think what MedPet means is that like it's not that sugar came from America, but it became accessible, which is true. Before colonizing America, they could not have sugar everywhere like they do today. So I guess maybe that's it.
Well-known fact that Crusaders brought back sugar from the Crusades. Also, in 1099 we have the first recorded mention of sugar in England. But even earlier than that, both the Romans and the Greeks knew about sugar, spoke about it, and had access to it. The Greeks describing it as having a similar consistency to salt, and the Romans describing both the Indian and the Arabic one, where Pliny the Elder already in the 1st century tells us that India's sugar was better, and he says that it was found in cane, white as gum, that crunches between the teeth. So the notion the sugar was not known in Europe and was only introduced during the Columbian exchange is incorrect. Alright, so a lot of other things to explore, and we'll do that after a brief word from our sponsor. So, it's the beginning of April and it's Easter sale. What better time to spruce up your place with a projector from Galaxy Lamps? A cool way to create a great atmosphere and brighten up your party. They're really easy to use as they can be controlled through an app, allowing you to choose your color combinations, sequences, rotation, and much more. Plus, they can be connected to Alexa and Google Assistant. Because it's Easter, you don't just get one deal, you get 3, 50% off plus an extra 20%, and 10 lucky winners will be randomly selected and will get a new projector worth almost $200 for free. Click the link in the description, but do it now, as this offer ends on the 10th of April. A big thanks to Galaxy Lamps for sponsoring my video.
But even existing ingredients would transform as a result of all this. So just right off the bat, living in the post-Columbian...
Don't just get one deal.
Like what is it like? Like do you buy like one of these gloves and they turn the environment?
You can be connected to choose your color combinations. See, really easy to use the lamps, as they can be controlled through an app, allowing...
I mean, they're app controlled, that's pretty cool as well. I would enjoy something like that. Let's see if I can find it in Galaxy Lamp.
You to choose your color combinations, sequences, rotation, and $200 for a big.
Dude, this in my kitchen would look so good because my kitchen is just so fucking ugly. I hate it.
In the description, but do it now, as this offer ends on the 10th of April. A big thanks to Galaxy Lamps for sponsoring my video.
It's my favorite place to be, and the worst at the same time.
But even existing ingredients would transform as a result of all this. So just right off the bat, living in the post-Columbian exchange world is gonna make our food inauthentic tasting. The food that exists today, it's just gonna taste better 9 times out of 10 because our ingredients have the benefit of selective breeding and engineering. Also,
okay, I actually disagree with this. I don't think that our food necessarily cheap, tastes better. Also because
it's like $20, 20, 25 bucks, something about that.
Remember that our foods in our day and age, unless you eat at a farm or are blessed by your mom's cooking, most of the times are filled and packed with sugars, with chemicals, with sodium, which doesn't always necessarily translate to tasting
look
better.
good in my
Stuff in the medieval period would have been a lot fresher, and only food that was in season would have been eaten. Another interesting fun fact is that a lot of the foods that we consider to be kind of high class, like, oh, I'm going to eat salmon, it was actually food that even the poor could eat.
Yes.
Whereas chicken,
That's
which
true.
is something that everyone can eat,
very
was something reserved
Good
more
point.
for someone who had money and power.
Which is
The
something that I
fact that he
mentioned, by the way.
mentioned selective
I mentioned
breeding as a
when
way
I was
to make the
reacting.
food taste better is not always the case. Oftentimes we change things just because of the looks. For example,
they would eat a lot of
white bread.
fish.
Not only to make white
Like, you know, something that I didn't like to eat, but they had in abundance, was lobster and crabs and shrimp. They had that in abundance. They knew how to cook it well, but they didn't like it because they thought it wasn't very clean, basically.
white bread will remove a lot of the stuff that is actually good for you. A lot of the food we have is overly engineered and overly refined. With that
Yes.
being said, it's true that some of the foods that originally in the medieval period, some vegetables, some roots, looked purple and then turned into another color, when oftentimes the losing of that specific pigment helped removing some bitterness from the fruit. So yeah, sometimes it's true, but it's not always. Modern food tastes better than medieval food.
No.
Not necessarily.
Also falling into the tastes inauthentic category are the drinks. But alas, nobody in medieval Europe was drinking anything close to what we'd call a soda. Instead, many of the nobility would have been drinking wine and ale. So let's just start off the wine, shall we? Modern wine is a triumph of vinting and science that would be utterly baffling to even the most masterful winemaker back in the Middle Ages. Yeast, the magic little fungi that digivolves boring old grape juice into palatable alcoholic wine, wasn't discovered as an individual organism until 1680. Before then, people had no idea what mechanism actually created the alcoholic flavor and effect. As a result, they would just take rotten grape juice and throw random stuff into it until it tasted okay. Winemaking was just a complete gamble here. They were trying anything from other fruit juices to herbs and spices to even powdered marble, trying to make it taste palatable. You know, enjoy drinking your fermented grape sludge.
Okay, I think this is the one point that I disagree the most with, respectively, of course.
Yeah, like this is what I was very skeptical about. Like whenever someone comes to me, like, you know, like people back then had no idea about anything. They were just so fucking stupid. They were dumb fucks. I mean, whenever people come to me to me like that, I automatically stop trusting anything they say afterwards, because I know I'm about to be bullshitted. So.
He's mostly talking about wine, but I think the point he's trying to draw is the fact that because medieval people weren't as advanced, scientifically speaking, as us, and didn't have the same level of understanding of, for example, the chemistry involved, the molecules involved with the production and what happens basically with wine, then what they were making was horrible, which is basically how he's putting it, because they didn't understand the science. And so basically it was a gamble. They didn't know what they were doing. It was all random. Simply because someone doesn't understand the science behind something, any process, it can be applied to wine, the molecules and the chemical
It's like the
processes,
Breaking
but
Bad
even
scene.
to cooking.
The guy had no
up to a
idea what
certain
the fuck he
extent.
was
It
cooking,
doesn't
but
mean
he
that they're
knew
not going to
how
be
to
able
cook
to
it.
achieve great things just through.
The bald guy who was working for, right? It was like the I wonder if I can show this. Knows how to cook. Knows how to cook. Copies. Mimics. I want to find the scene. Just the scene where the guy working for Gus does it exactly like Walter White would do. Was it that scene?
Him. I'm not him. This person doesn't know what the hell he's doing.
Been watching him for weeks. Know every step to his cook.
Yeah. He doesn't know the sciences, but he knows how to cook. I mean, this is true for like pretty much most cooks. Like what? You think we guys? You think we have the time to learn like how the molecules of a chicken breast react to being like burned or something? No, we just put it on the fucking oven and it tastes good. Like what the fuck?
Knowledge. This thing that he's saying, they just tried things until something.
I mean, not on the oven. Chicken breast on the oven sounds disgusting. On the pan, on the frying pan. But
worked, well, that is not a small thing. To drive this point home, imagine someone who cooks at home and they do an exceptional job. They're really good. But do they have to be food scientists to pull that off? Can you be a great cook even if you don't understand everything at a molecular level and all the chemistry and science involved with the processes that you
I am doing the thing
activate out of your own experience? Absolutely yes. In fact, if you think
I accidentally predicted
about it, even though medieval people didn't understand the science of metallurgy the same way we do, they still were able to build full suits of plate armor in steel, oftentimes within low to medium carbon steel, sometimes even high carbon. Through the process of experimenting. And still for a different, but still quite applicable example, whoever MatPat's editor is, do they understand everything when it comes to the process of the coding, all the way down to the transistors and everything that happens inside a computer when they edit a video?
Dude, this guy,
probably not. The majority of editors out there do not understand computers at a fundamental level, in the sense that
his name is Metatron. I'm giving him a shout out. Consider this a shout out. I'm going to put his video.
They know that if they click there and they click this and they move this,
guy's based,
and they drag that, they're gonna have a great video. So even if they don't know exactly what's happening at the level of the code and even behind the transistors and everything at a microscopic level that happens inside your computer and the chips and the motherboard, they are still able to produce a pretty good result. So this notion or idea that just because medieval people didn't understand everything at a scientific level, at a molecular level, then that equals that they weren't able to cook well or produce good wine or produce good beer. It doesn't hold water.
We'll start off with the very first course for all attendees, tomato bisque. Tomatoes are delicious and are considered to be a staple of modern European foods, especially Italian food. But before the Columbian Exchange, tomatoes weren't available in Europe at all. When Europeans first saw tomato leaves, they recognized them as being related to nightshade, a poisonous plant. That then made Europeans skeptical of eating tomatoes for a long time, meaning that even after the Columbian Exchange...
Okay, just a little thing about this. This is just a little nitpick, and I'm mostly saying it not necessarily to criticize him, but just to bring in an interesting piece of information. But you know how he has this little medieval, although again he's wearing a post-medieval suit of armor, but still, that guy is looking down at the tomatoes as if they're being presented to him from America, and then he sees them and he's like, "Ooh, what the heck is that?" But I think it would have been a much better touch if, instead of using modern tomatoes, which are large and red, which is not how American tomatoes in the Middle Ages would have looked, if he had used small and yellow ones, which is most likely the variety that was imported and introduced from America to Europe at this time, which is probably one of the reasons why even today the Italian word for tomato is pomodoro. Pomo being a kind of archaic word to say apple, and d'oro meaning of gold, so apple of gold, which makes sense if considering the fact the original tomatoes were yellow. And this association in the mind of medieval people between apples and stuff that is coming from America
is not... It's such an interesting name, right? Golden apple, like the golden apple of Aphrodite, or the golden apple of the Nordic mythology, right?
Only found in this Italian word pomodoro, but also in the French word for potatoes, which is pomme de terre, so apples of the ground. Fascinating.
It still took an additional 200 years for tomatoes to actually catch on as a food. That makes the bowl of tomato bisque that starts your medieval times meal about as historically accurate as giving a knight a musket. The next course is probably...
Another very small nitpick, but when he says that this tomato bisque is as accurate as giving a knight a musket, believe it or not, muskets were present in the time of knights. But this is a nitpick because...
It's not a nitpick at all. Like, no. It's not a nitpick. It's actually a huge mistake by MatPat's fucking shitty research. Remember Age of Empires 2? In Age of Empires 2, how on the Imperial Age, you could research hand cannoneers? Let me tell you, Ensemble Studios didn't make this up. They didn't just like pull out some fan fiction out of their asses. On the contrary. Hand cannon. Oh, hand cannon. What the fuck would be a head cannon? Like a cannon that you put on your helmet and shoot it with your head? What the fuck? Let's put it like medieval. Although this is probably like, yeah, this is a medieval head cannon, but it's a little bit advanced. We want like the more like primitive stuff, right? Let's see if we can find like the very... I watched this video, I think it was this one.
Of roosts. There must first be gunpowder.
Look at this guy's voice.
A range of only a few feet.
This guy's a giga chat, dude.
Spain. Metal tubes. Regarding...
I just want to see like a replica.
Sure.
I think we're going with that video of this guy shooting. This one is like this one is not from that age at all. But this is what a medieval head cannon looked like.
Welcome to ye olde end range. We've gone all the way back to the 1400s, and here we have a handgunner, arguably the very first effective handheld firearm. Now, this is of course not an original. This is a reproduction from veteran.
Hand gun. Like I remember, like there was one design that was made by Da Vinci himself, and it looked really fucking cool. Like there was like a rope that we would use to like lock the bullet. It was so cool. Gosh. Like this is why when I see like an RPG campaign and the DM is like, oh, we can't have like the Ganslinger, like we can't have like firearms in this game because there were no guns back then. It just baffles me. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Is this on the medieval times or is this on the classical age? You fucking moron. It just really triggers me actually, because it's like, what kind of medieval fantasy is this, where you have artificers who can get like basically Renaissance technology, but you don't have gosh darn handgunas or hand cannons. This is what a primitive firearm looked like, and it was really awesome.
The way he's using musket is probably the modern way, so he's talking about the sort of early firearms used during, I want to say, Napoleonic Wars, but actually specifically in the time of knights, when there were still knights in full plate armor. Not only firearms were available, and I think a lot of people think that firearms are an early modern invention.
Oh, by the way, there's actually like a lot of like, this is awesome. I had no idea about this, but there's like an optional rule for Dungeons and Dragons. This is so cool. Look at this fucking shit. Renaissance. This is not Renaissance. Urgh. It's so annoying. But yeah, like it's 1D piercing, and you gotta spend like a bonus action to load. It does like pretty good damage. And it's super valuable. 1d12 for the musket. It's a lot of damage for a ranged weapon. Super good. Super good. Super valuable. Oh no.
Whereas it's not. Hand pistols were already used even in the early 15th century. But the reason why you might want to be careful when you say muskets and knights cannot coexist is because the actual usage of the word musket in its earliest usage just means a very large arquebus that was so heavy that needed to be placed on top of a support. If you give that in the hands of a knight, it actually wouldn't be...
It's like, you know, one thing that you've got to ask yourself is like, okay, did they have cannons? Yes. Did they have gunpowder to make the cannon shoot the bullet? Yes. Okay, then why couldn't they just like lower the size of the cannon, make it portable, and use it as a gun? You know, it baffles me when DMs prohibit and ban guns from their campaign. It's just so like, unless it's like you know, classical times, like ancient Egypt, ancient Greece or ancient Rome, or it's like something like what's it called? Or it's like yeah, if it's something like around that time, then sure, I understand it. But otherwise, if it's medieval, it's so wrong. It fucking pisses me off.
As bad as giving people bisque.
Probably Probably the most historically accurate, the salad. Everyone from the lowliest peasants to the richest noble would certainly have eaten their fair share of salads back in the Middle Ages, because meat was just expensive and difficult to produce. As a result, meat was reserved mostly for special occasions unless you were very well off. And even then, the powerful Catholic Church banned eating meat or even animal products on Fridays, Saturdays, and Wednesdays. That's right, Middle Ages, even the most powerful of noble was vegan 3 times a week.
Well, unless they ignored it, which sometimes they do. I mean, there are a lot of things the medieval popes and the medieval church said. They banned crossbows, they banned jousting tournaments, and people just ignored them, particularly the powerful. So there is that.
So a salad isn't out of place here at all. Might as well give medieval times a point for this one, because it is honestly the only point they're getting this episode. Moving on to the main course, we've got ourselves a few options. Half chicken, some barbecue pork ribs, kielbasa sausage, and a vegetarian hummus plate. So let's just go down the line, shall we? Half roasted chicken is probably the most realistic option of the bunch. Chickens first arrived in Europe via trade around 800 BC, so it's perfectly reasonable to think that Europeans were cooking and eating chickens in the 11th century. And because they were relatively easy to raise and slaughter, they presented a viable food option. That said, chickens weren't as common as beef or pork because they required more care and attention than your typical pig or cow. As a result,
yeah, and also one thing that I'd like to add to this is, he's not wrong, but one thing I'd like to add is that it's not that like people could just eat chicken. He did mention earlier on the video that it's, you know, usually it's people that have certain amount of wealth that can eat or have access to meat. Well, it kind of depends on what meat we're talking about, but specifically chicken, it's not that they're necessarily easier to raise, and that's the reason why only the powerful could kill chicken, but it's mostly because birds that can lay eggs are a food source and an asset. So only someone who is wealthy can kill a bird that would have otherwise produced eggs. Whereas if you were a farmer, you would avoid poultry, and mostly because you want to keep the bird so they keep laying eggs and you maintain.
Yeah, you're basically like stretching. You're like, dude, I am so fucking rich, I can kill my food source and serve it on the table. I'm based, you're basically saying.
Asset.
As a result, chickens were often reserved for special occasions like feasts or holidays. Pigs, also viable on the tasting menu. They were domesticated thousands of years ago, so it's not unreasonable to think that our medieval feast would have had some pork ribs. Sure, their barbecue sauce wouldn't have been loaded with sugar and tomato paste like modern barbecue sauces, but they would season their meats with spices and wine, so pretty darn close.
And also medieval people seasoned, I'd like to underline that medieval cuisine varies enormously between places.
Regions.
So for example, in Italy you would have had more usage of olive oil, whereas if you go further up north, then butter is usually the sort of fat that is used for cooking. So very much depends on what's available locally, obviously.
To this day, you know, like Italy, Spain, and Portugal use a lot of extra virgin olive oil on their food, while places like France and Britain use more like butter, you know, on their food.
Because things weren't as connected as they are today. But medieval people, including farmers and peasants, absolutely knew how to make sauces from herbs and lots of different ingredients and vegetable sauces to garnish their food. So thinking the medieval food was horrible if you were poor is not necessarily true.
No,
it's just that as a poor person you might not be able to afford to eat the same kind of stuff that rich people did, which means that also there was a sort of a discrepancy when it comes to...
Like, this is what we do, like, to this day, you know, like, expensive ingredients are not necessarily more delicious. They're just a stretch. Like, they're just like, you know, a flex. They're like a flex. Like, you know, like, it's just like, you know, you just, like, it's like, what is the name of that fucking, like, what's it called? What is it, caviar, I guess it's called? You know, a lot of like expensive like ingredients, they're only expensive because like, you know, people just buy them to flex. You know, people just eat them to flex. You know, like, it's not, it's like the fucking Arabian, like the South Bay golden meat. It's like, gold is like, you know, putting gold in your food isn't going to make it taste better. You know, his food is not better just because he does this, but it's just more expensive. It's a flex.
To nutrition, but in reality we still have that today.
As recently as 400 years ago, potatoes were still a complete mystery to Europeans. You know what else was a mystery to them? Corn, another staple food item that was introduced to Europe as part of the Columbian Exchange. Jeez, when you look at the food roster here, it seems like all the most delicious stuff was over in the...
Once again though, corn wouldn't have looked like that, so it would have been, I think, interesting to also show the colors vegetables and fruit had in the Middle Ages. There was a lot more purple. If that's something you might be interested in, let me know, and I might make a video or a short about.
I hope you made a video about that. But anyway, I'm going to call it. This was certainly an experience. Not a bad MedPet video, you know, considering that he got, like, you know, some things wrong. For the standards, for his standard, he did pretty good, actually. Usually he gets everything wrong. And he just got some things wrong, so, hey, not bad, you know, pretty good. Where was the original video? Well, it's gone. Anyway, thank you so much, guys, for watching. Glad to see, like, you know, people actually watching my content, enjoying that. Really means the world to me. So, yeah, that's my video, and I'll see you on the next video. Goodbye.